Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into how America went from a nation of farms to a global superpower in the span of a single lifetime. It's a period called the Second Industrial Revolution, and it didn't just change America. It literally built the foundations of the world you and I are living in today.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The entire story really hinges on this one big question. How did a nation that was mostly farmland in 1870 become the world's leading industrial giant just 40 years later? I mean, the sheer speed and scale of that change, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
Just try to picture this for a second. Before this era, your whole world was probably a farm. News traveled by horse, and life moved at the pace of the seasons. Now, fast forward just one generation, and bam! You've got towering cities, messages zipping across the continent in an instant, and the entire country connected by miles and miles of steel rails. We're talking about a complete reinvention of daily life.
So, how on earth did this happen so incredibly fast? Well, it all starts with the engine of this change, an event that completely reimagined what a nation could even be.
This period is known as the Second Industrial Revolution. And unlike the first one, which was mostly about textiles and steam, this new wave was all about steel, electricity, and chemicals. It wasn't just about making things, it was about discovering entirely new ways to make things, to power things, and to connect with each other. A total game changer.
Right at the heart of this revolution were a few key inventions. These were true sparks of genius that didn't just improve life, they created whole new industries and possibilities, seemingly out of thin air.
But here's the thing. These inventions weren't just isolated miracles. They created this incredible chain reaction. See, the Bessemer process gave us cheap steel, which you absolutely needed to build the railroads. Then, those same railroads could carry refrigerated cars, which completely changed how America ate. At the same time, Edison's light bulb meant factories could run 24/7, and Bell's telephone sped up all the business needed to manage this new, complex world. Each innovation was basically fuel for the next one.
But inventions, no matter how brilliant they are, they need the right environment to really catch fire. And America in the late 19th century, it had the perfect recipe. All the fuel needed for an industrial explosion like nothing the world had ever seen.
Think of it like you're building something epic. First, America had all the raw materials just sitting in the ground, tons of coal and iron ore. Next, it had the people, a huge workforce, always growing because of immigration. Then you had the money, capital from rich entrepreneurs who were ready and willing to fund these gigantic ideas. And finally, you had the delivery system, a railroad network that could connect the resources to the factories and then the factories to the customers. It was just the perfect storm, the perfect combination at the exact right moment.
But, and this is a huge but, this incredible wave of progress was a real double-edged sword. While it created enormous wealth and all these new opportunities, it also came at a pretty steep human cost. The impact was felt very, very differently depending on who you were.
This progress basically created two completely different realities. On one side, if you were a consumer, life was definitely getting better. You could buy more stuff, prices were lower, and you could travel and communicate faster than ever. But if you were one of the workers making all that happen, well, that's a different story. For you, it was often long hours, dangerous conditions, and really low pay. The shiny new cities were often crowded and unhealthy for the very people who built them.
And this imbalance wasn't just social, it was also geographical. The industrial boom didn't lift every part of the country up equally. In fact, it carved out a massive economic divide. And that economic divide was drawn along some pretty sharp geographic lines. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're staggering. By the year 1900, the North was churning out nearly 90% of all manufacturing in the entire country. So this revolution, it wasn't really a fully American story, it was overwhelmingly a Northern story. So why the huge gap? Well, the South was kind of caught in this difficult loop. It was still trying to rebuild after the Civil War, and its economy was just stuck on agriculture. There was very little money to invest in new factories, and its railroad system just couldn't compete with the North's. So without the factories, there was no new investment, and without that investment, you couldn't build new factories. So let's pause for a second and connect this back to our world today. Look at those inventions again, the light bulb, the telephone, even something as basic as cheap steel. Just imagine your day right now without just one of them. The electricity that's powering your screen, the device you're watching this on, which one would be the hardest for you to give up? It really puts their impact into perspective, doesn't it?
Because in the end, that's the real takeaway here. The Second Industrial Revolution wasn't just about building factories and laying down railroad tracks. It was about creating the actual foundations of modern life, the global, interconnected, and tech-driven world that we all live in today. It was, truly, the era that invented the future.